What's up, everyone, and welcome to Metalcore Nerds, the podcast that combines heavy music and pop culture. I'm your host, Sean Mott, and we're back. Moon Knight After Show is here, doing episodes 1 and 2 together, and I got my co-host for the Moon Knight After Show, Mike Skyros. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. We're up in an early morning. I'm not going to reveal what date
Yes.
it is because it's probably going to come out a few days from now, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Waking up early. You're kind of staying up late, sort of.
Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things, but we're making it work.
Yeah, we're making it work. But Mike, I want you to tell the people a little about yourself. It's a
Yeah.
different guest for the podcast than usual, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. So my name is Mike Skyros. I go by the moniker the Moonlight Sun. I have been a professional wrestler for the past 8 years in the upstate New York and New England area. And I'm a big fan of Moon Knight as well. So I'm excited to be joining the show. And I don't know if being a wrestler offers that much of a different perspective on this topic, but we'll see.
I mean, I'm here for any different kind of perspective. I've
Yeah.
had like friends on the show. I've had people in bands, people who work behind the scenes. So it's always cool to get someone. Even I've lately, it's just been a lot of different podcasters who have kind of like heavy music or maybe played in a smaller band or stuff like that. So it's cool to have a wrestler. I did have Zach Warner on for I do an all elite nerd show that covers all
Yeah.
AEW, and he was on, and he's like behind the scenes now and wrestling stuff, which is cool. Good for that
Absolutely.
guy. But
Yeah.
and I had this dude Liam Crowley. He writes for Wrestling Inc. actually, so that was
Oh,
cool
that's
too
yeah.
to kind of have some behind the scenes wrestling guys talk about wrestling. But it's cool to have a wrestling guy talk about some MCU. It's nice. I like that.
Hell
I
yeah,
like
man.
that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I didn't meet Mike formally for like until like I guess a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago,
Yeah, we met
maybe.
watching All Elite Wrestling pay-per-view for the
Yeah,
first time, and
but I
it was
saw you
it was
wrestle.
fairly recent. Yeah,
I did see you wrestle many a times in 2CW.
that's how I've gotten that over the years. It's funny because 2CW has had like such a reach in the area that we're from
Yeah,
that I've met quite a few people that are like, "Oh, I saw you wrestle in 2CW," and then like years later we became friends through like whatever other means. So
yeah.
that's always really cool.
Even Justin, who we watched the AEW favors, I was never friends with him during 2CW, but he knew my wife
Yeah,
Sam, and he was like, "How are you guys not friends? Like, how do you guys not know each other?" And we're both like, "I don't know." And now we're like pretty damn good friends. It's weird how that shit works. You
you
see
love to see
someone for
it.
years, and then years later you're friends. But it's cool.
Yeah,
That's life for you. That's life for you.
absolutely.
So you said you're a Moon Knight fan. I want
I
to
am.
hear what was your introduction to Moon Knight? How long have you liked Moon Knight? And yeah, because I know he's a pretty obscure character. Not a lot of people know about
Yes.
him. I didn't really get into him until they announced the show a few years back, and then I started researching him, checking him out, reading a few comic runs and stuff like that. But I mean, my wife Sam, who did the non-spoiler review of the first 4 episodes, she had no idea what Moon Knight was. Really, I kind of gave her the rundown of like, oh yeah, he has multiple personalities, blah blah blah. But she went in pretty cold, and she liked that because it wasn't like a oh I need to know everything beforehand. They're gonna explain it to me kind of thing, which she thought was very nice. But yeah, what is your background on Moon Knight?
Yeah, so like a lot of people, I was first introduced to Moon Knight through the Xbox version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance, where he was an exclusive character. So I really enjoyed that game. My friends and I used to play together all the time, and I remember seeing him. I'm like, I have no clue who this guy is, but he's got a cool costume. He's got some really cool powers, like and weapons and stuff. So I definitely want to find out more about this guy. And I kind of just rocked with Ultimate Alliance for a while, and then years later, as I got out of college and like started getting more into comic books, he was a character that I sought out because of that experience, and I really ended up enjoying like the different nuance with the personalities and like the origin story, all the stuff that wasn't really explored in the video game became like
Right.
a reason I was really into the character. And then I read the Lemire run of Moon Knight, and
Yes.
that was like completely sealed it for me. And it's still my favorite comic book run of his. It's just like this story is so cool, and like this character is just so interesting to me. And like the lunar aesthetic too was also something I was into, and in a way became part of my wrestling persona, both like directly and indirectly. So it's it's not like a super uncommon origin, but it's
Right.
been cool to like kind of apply it to wrestling as well.
So he is like the reason you have like the lunar kind of aesthetic for your wrestling persona.
He's he's not like the direct reason, but like he's an inspiration, and it's become more so of an inspiration like through the years. So
Okay.
I I'm like I had I want to put some sort of like creative like direction behind what I was doing, and I was like, oh, what's I wanted something dark, and I wanted something that like I could tap into in a lot of different ways, and I was like the moon right there. And as I got more into it, people would ask me like, oh, is this a Moon Knight thing? Especially because I had a few friends that were fans of his as well. And I
Right.
was like, no, but like as I got more into the comic books, probably in the last 3 or 4 years, it's kind of seeped in. And then now sometimes I'll
That's
come
awesome.
out and I have a Moon Knight mask, I have a black and a white like lucha mask I got made, and that's been fun too. Like because now so he's getting more like clout
Right.
online, but
Yep.
especially maybe like 2 years ago, like people that knew I'm like you really had to be like a little bit deep to
Yeah.
know what that even was.
It was kind of like the Gargano takeover trunks and like gear he
Yeah,
would wear. I mean, some of them were kind of obvious, like he had like an Iron Man one that was pretty obvious and stuff like that. But I remember one was like a dark Phoenix colors, and you kind of need to like know the comic rather than the movies to know like, oh wow, he pulled out, and it was like in the X-Men font in the back and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's sick. That's really cool. I always wondered if it was kind of directly influenced or if it was kind of like a thing you already had, and then you're like, well, I'm just gonna add more into it. You know what I mean?
yeah. More so option B, but like
Yeah.
it's definitely been weaved in there from the start.
That's awesome. He's such a fucking cool character. As soon as I
Yeah,
heard about Moon Knight and started like researching him and everything like that, because I'm a big Batman guy, and I know there's a lot of Batman allegories, but I like to put it as Marvel's Batman if he was literally crazy instead of just being like traumatized and dealing with
yeah,
death at such a young age in such a traumatic way, but like he's actually crazy. And
yeah,
I do love how they talk about. I think there's like a comic panel where he's like, I wear white so people can see me coming. And then Batman's
yeah.
whole thing is I wear black so they don't see me coming. And I was like,
Yes,
man, that's so dope. Like, so, and he did get a little popular in the last few years, especially after the show
yeah,
got announced with Moon Knight Core, with, all the memes about
yeah.
Moon Knight and the, hey, Dracula, where's my fucking money? Which isn't real. It's a meme, but it's
Yeah.
still fucking
Sorry to
hilarious. I love that
disappoint
shit.
anybody.
Yeah, so people were like, "Oh, Ethan Hawke's gonna be Dracula," and I was like, "He's not even." I mean, not that they couldn't do it for
Yeah,
sure, but I was like, "He's not even really a Moon Knight villain. That's just a meme. Like, it's just
yeah,
funny." He does say hilarious shit like that. Like, there's a panel with him and Frank Castle where he's like, "Hey, Mark, you still
yeah,
fucking crazy?" And he's like, "Yeah, is your family still dead?" And I was like,
yeah,
"That's rough." Like, and that's the one thing I can't wait for before we get into episode 1 and 2 is that I can't wait to see him because this show is very much like detached from the MCU. There's
yeah,
in the 4 episodes I've seen, there's 2 references, and I think either one was in the second episode or it's in the third episode, but they're insanely small. One is on a bus in episode 2. You see the GRC from Falcon and Winter Soldier, the global relocation,
yes,
whatever, from the blip. You see that, and then there's a mention of a location later on, and that's all I've seen as far as MCU tie-in. So it's very much its own thing, but I can't wait to see him, especially if he's like switches personalities while being with other people. I can't wait to see like that interaction with like anyone else in the MCU. Like I can't wait for that. I think it's going to be
yeah. There's a whole can of
amazing.
worms you can open with all of that.
Yeah, it because just I mean, people already think he's crazy. Like as we see in episode 2, there's some reason why normal people can't see like the Egyptian monsters that
Yeah,
Harrow brings out and stuff like that. But it's like if something like that happens while like an Avenger is there with them, they'll be like, "What the fuck is going on?" You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like it'd be so great. So I do hope we get because I know that there's this rumor that came out that oh Oscar Isaac only signed on for this series, but that's like a new thing in Marvel where they're not locking people into contracts for 10 years anymore. So it's this
yeah,
whole news thing where someone takes something out of context and turns it into a story when it's not even a story. Like the same thing, like Anthony Mackie, I don't think is on contract. Like so many people aren't on contract anymore. They don't. A lot of them don't sign big deals. Like even Tom
Yeah,
Holland's not on a deal, but like they're doing another trilogy. Like it's happening. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah,
they're not. They're trying to. I think they're trying to do it to give the people more money, which is actually really cool of them to give the
yeah, of
actors
course.
more money, and they don't have to feel pressured to be like, oh, I'm stuck just in this for 10 years. It's they kind of take it project by project. It's just I don't know. People go too far with things they see on the internet.
Yeah,
I
I think
think.
with Moon Knight specifically, because he's such like a low key character compared to a lot of these other guys, he's like such a low risk thing for them in that aspect because the show's getting really good buzz and like
Yeah.
really becoming really popular, like kind of out the gate. And but I could see it being a thing where it's like, well, we signed him on for this, and like if this completely bombs and no one cares, like it's not like he's like Spider-Man or something to where like
Right.
he's gonna be popping up like all the time anywhere. They can kind of shuffle Moon Knight to the side and like tell their other stories, and no one's really gonna clamor about it. But now since it's blowing up, like they could throw him back in there whenever they want to, and that's
Yep.
they can have their cake and eat it too when it comes to all that stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
really interested to see how they work, especially with Oscar Isaac because he's killing it on it going forward.
Yeah, he's so good, and I'm so glad
Yeah,
he's in a other than Dune, which it's kind of hard to call that a big genre thing, even though it is. But like, I guess a big IP. I'm happy to see him in a big, especially a Marvel related thing that's
yeah,
he's actually able to shine in. Because like you know, people have their opinions about Star Wars. I like all Star Wars to a certain
yeah,
degree. But I mean, he was kind of just there. It's not like you got like an Oscar Isaac performance as Poe Dameron, and
right.
X-Men Apocalypse, we don't really need to talk about
No,
that.
no, we don't.
We'll just forget that he ever was in that role, which is a shame. Because if you think, oh my God, Oscar Isaac's playing Apocalypse, that should be incredible. And then you got what you got.
It should have been.
It should have been. You're
Really
right.
should have been.
But all right, let's dive into episode 1 here. So they starts off with Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke, and this scene was such a great opening to the series in general. He drinks out of this glass, he breaks it and then puts it in his sandals, and then you just hear the crunching of him walking on the glass as he leaves the room, which I thought set a great tone for the show. Now the show does have some comedy, but it is kind of on the darker side, I
Yeah,
guess. There are some horror elements. I would not call it a horror show by any means, but there's definitely some cool horror elements sprinkled in, which I
yeah,
really, really like, especially leading into something like Multiverse of Madness that I'm glad they're
yeah,
kind of going hand in hand. This ends the week that comes out. So I feel like that's a perfect thing. And then we go to Stephen Grant, this cute little gift shopist that just doesn't really know what the fuck's going on. Poor guy.
yeah,
His boss hates him. He's you can tell he knows a lot about Egyptian mythology. He tries to like teach this kid about some stuff, and you know he gets yelled at for being late, etc. Normal guy at a job who getting the short end of the stick. It happens. He heads home, and then you kind of see his process of what he has to do before he goes to bed. He puts tape on the door. He puts sand around his bed so if he steps, he can see the step in the morning, and then he chains himself up to his bed, which
yeah.
wild. So, what did you think of this whole opening introduction into like Arthur Harrow and Stephen Grant as the show kicked off?
Okay. So I had an interesting experience with it. So you said you hear the glass cracking in his shoes. I didn't because my roommates installed like some really cool new speakers, and I couldn't figure out how to get them to sync up. So I put the subtitles on for like the first 45 seconds. So I saw the screen telling me uh, cracking of glass as steps or
Oh,
whatever. But I got the picture. Yeah, when you said it set the tone really well. I agree. That was a really cool way to open. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a very like easygoing show and movie watcher. But when I first heard that Stephen Grant accent as he starts, I was like, what have they done to my boy? What have they done to Stephen? Like, what's going on here? Uh,
right.
and you grow to love it because of like who he is as a character, but
Yes.
I had to remind myself like, all right, be patient, like let this play out, see how it goes. And when it came to his like whole setup with the sand and being harnessed onto his bed, I'm interested to see if they ever circle back. I mean, 'cause I feel like it's that opportunity is kind of it might have left now, but I want to see how Mark Houdini's himself out of that situation every time, because we come to learn like that he's out here bouncing about as Mark Spector and as Moon Knight, but you don't really
Yeah.
necessarily get to see how he goes without like kind of cluing Steven onto it. But it was really interesting. Like it does set the tone of like, all right, this guy's got some stuff going on. He knows there's something going on, but he's not sure what. And I thought it was really good at building like anticipation for when that ball starts to get rolling.
Yeah, I think they probably won't revisit it because I think it'd probably be pretty easy because he can just unbuckle himself and then sidestep on the other side of the bed or jump over the
Yeah.
sand. As we can see, Mark Spector is very capable
Yes.
of a lot of things, and then just tape on the door.
Yeah.
He just reapply the tape. It's like he's aware of what's going on while it's still happening. So I think he's not like he set up this crazy elaborate thing he needed to break every
Right.
time. You know what I mean?
I want to see it.
Yeah. Just see him sneaking around,
Yeah.
like doing it. Yeah, that would be kind of funny.
And
And
to
then we
your
get
point
into
too,
oh yeah,
it's like it's really like funny to me how much smarter Mark is than Steven. Like it just like out maneuvering him at every step like there. Just poor
yeah.
Steven.
We do see later because you do see that he is like educated and smart, and
Yeah.
especially in the next episode. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but you see how his smarts in that way come into play, and he becomes a more less goofy kind of character than he is in the first two episodes, which I didn't mind. I know some people are kind of upset about it or whatever. And
Yeah.
even like the British accent and stuff too. I know Stephen Grant is like the millionaire persona, kind of like the Bruce Wayne S kind of thing, and I think they probably changed that for that reason, and they probably made
Yeah.
him gave him the English accent to help differentiate the personalities, which we
Yeah.
do see that Oscar Isaac does an incredible way of changing like his posture and the way he presents himself, that you're like, holy fuck, these are two completely
Yeah,
different
dude.
people. Oscar
Absolutely.
Isaac is fucking unbelievable. Like he is incredible. We're so lucky to have him in an MCU show.
Yeah.
It's insane, dude. Even when they announced this, I was shocked because I know he did not have good things to say about his Star Wars experience. So when they were like, "Oh, he's gonna be Moon Knight," I was like, "Really? Huh?
Yeah.
Cool." But he is a producer on the show as well, which is pretty sick. So
Yeah. And as someone, and we've both worked in creative spaces, I think that him being a producer, especially with something like Star Wars, where there's a lot of pressure going down, and not to
right,
say that Moon Knight doesn't have pressure, but him one getting to work on this more low-key comic character, and additionally like having like the reins off in terms of he can be creative and he doesn't have someone like breathing down his neck all the time.
right,
It's just good for the creative process, and
yeah,
it seems like I would imagine he's having fun with it because it looks like it would be a blast to play
yeah.
all these characters.
And even him in interviews, he seems very static about the character and the story they're telling. So whenever I see something like that, and usually that is the case with MCU stuff because they usually let them have like very big creative freedom. I'm always stoked when I hear stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this is going to be
Yeah,
great. It's they have a high bar and usually they meet it or at least come to a point where like, yeah, that was pretty good. So that's a good track record, to
yes,
things are great or good. You can't beat that. Um, and then we get into this first, and I love how the episode did it this way. So he's trying to stay awake. He's has this stay awake kind of like tape that he's listening to. He's trying a Rubik's cube. He's reading, studying more Egyptian lore and stuff like that. And then he just wakes up in a field. His jaw looks like it's like fucking broken. And I love how jarring this episode was. It was so
yeah,
cool. He just wakes up and he's like, what the fuck is going on? He has this gold scarab in his pocket. And then two people are on the window and they start shooting at him and he's running away. And I love how it's the first time we hear and see a glimpse of Khonshu. And he's like, oh, the idiot's back in control. It's like, it's so good. And in Khonshu in the comics, especially like in the Lemire run, he can be very snarky and he is kind of
yeah,
snarky in this show. And I like that. He's like serious but snarky. It's kind of how you expect a god would be, especially
yeah,
not like it's kind of how I expect a god would kind of be, especially
yeah,
knowing people like Thor, who's technically a god and stuff like that. It kind of all fits together because I know some people complain about that too, but people like to complain about everything. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's always gonna have something to complain about, especially with like comic book movies. But
Yeah.
Sassy Khonshu is definitely over with me. Like he's nailing it. Like he's just so like I don't know what the adjective I'm looking for is here, but like he's just so like pouty about like it's like oh, the idiot's back. It's like you like Marc, come fix this, Marc. Like what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
I just his relationship with Steven is like endlessly hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's pretty great, and I do like how it builds and gets kind of more interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And then we see him stumble upon Arthur Harrow in the streets with his cult following, and we see him use the cane with the crocodile head, and he's talking about how Amit will judge them and everything like that. And he does the thing where he swings the cane, and then his fucking tattoo moves. He does it to a man, and it goes green, so he's good to go. And then they do it to an older woman, it goes red, and then the fucking life gets sucked out of her and she dies. Which I
Yep.
was like, whoa. Yeah, it must be
Yeah.
like sacrifices to Amit. I don't think we really got an explanation for that at all,
Not
but
yet. No.
it's cool. It's like he's such a weird character. I love
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke. Like,
Yeah. He's nailing it too. And then with his character, I'll admit, like I wasn't familiar with his character at all going into this. I had to, after this episode, like stop and look up his significance. And I'm interested, like he's a very interesting character on this show. I like how they kind of went with someone more low key, even like for Moon Knight standards, for like the main antagonist, because you have all these villains to choose from, and people were like, "Well, it's gonna be, can they really do Bushman? Are they gonna go into like a
right.
Jack Russell type of thing? Like, what kind of direction are they gonna go with it?" But I don't think anyone really called this going into it at all. I know I definitely wouldn't have.
Oh no, yeah, he's in one issue.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's it. And the character is ungodly different. It's insanely different. But I think it's like way cooler that way. They can just use a name that's from Marvel lore and just make it their own, which they've done before. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
very smart.
it's cool. And yeah, like you said, there was a lot of different ways they could go with it, but I think this plays way more into the story they're telling. I think
Hmm.
it makes a lot more sense. And then Arthur is informed that someone got away with a scarab, so he kind of tricks Steven into getting caught that he's the one who stole it. And I love this scene where he's like trying to give away the scarab to Arthur Harrow, and
Hmm.
like I don't know if it's Marc or Khonshu or a little bit of both, won't let him. He
Hmm.
keeps like he's like trying to pry his fingers open and he can't, and he's like turning to hand it to him and everything like that. And Khonshu's like, "Don't give it to him! Don't do it! What are you doing?" And I
Yeah.
loved that scene. And Arthur Harrow is just like, "What the fuck is?" He's like, "Give me the
Yeah.
scarab! Like, what are you doing?" And then he
Yeah.
ends up getting swarmed by a group of people, and then it fades out again, and he wakes up, and they're all dead on the ground, like dead. Like this one dude's head's like imploded basically, and there's blood all over
Yeah.
the street and shit. And again, I love how they've played with this perspective. A lot of people thought they were like shying away from the violence and stuff like that, but I was like, man, this is such a cool thing, because like we are Steven right now.
Hmm.
We are finding out everything with him, which I thought was like a really good and smart way to tell the story. Because like it feels kind of like Fight Club in a way, or Mr. Robot or something like that. It's like one of
Yeah.
those things where there's like this different personality. When you sleep, they take over or stuff like that. I thought it was really cool. I love how they kept fucking with us, especially in this episode. It's mostly in this
Yeah.
episode where they kind of do that kind of thing, but it kind of leads to the whole thing. He goes into a cupcake van and tries to get away. Again, they're kind of catching up on him. Some of Harrow's men get into the cupcake truck, and it fades out again. He wakes up with a fucking gun in his hand. The dude falls out dead of the cupcake truck. Chase carries on. Again, he fades out again, wakes up. The truck is going backwards, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then he ends up stopping. And this scene was incredible because the windshield's completely broken, but the windshield wipers are still going. And then the two men get crushed by the falling truck that crashed earlier on in the car chase, by some logs, some real Final Destination shit. And then he wakes up in his bed like it was a one big nightmare, and he kind of plays it off like that. He's like, "Oh, yeah, it was just a dream." But
Yeah.
he kind of realizes these feel a little bit more than dreams. you know
Yeah.
what did you think of that whole that whole section there.
So it was funny when he was like keeping his hand closed, and Marc slash Khonshu was like keeping the scarab away. It felt like one of those prank like YouTube shows, like, oh, it's just a prank, bro, and like he's trying to hand over the scarab, but not really. I'm
Yeah.
interested. I mean, the show. I don't know how far the plot would be able to go if this were the case later, but like, why didn't Marc slash Khonshu do that later on, or like, is it a thing where Mark's just not Marc, Steven's taking more control because like later, we'll get into it, but he has a very different situation with the scarab in episode 2,
Yeah.
and then I'm really enjoying like him going through the process of like flashing in and out of Marc Spector and all the wackiness with them driving down the hill. And I think 100% of people felt the same way that you did about the Final Destination truck rolling
Yes.
down the logs and crushing those dudes. Like, oh, that influence will never die. It's like the
No.
most enduring horror movie scene of all time, the Final Destination log truck. But yeah, like they really do a good job of playing it off like of Steven's perspective, and it was a really fun way to watch the show because like again, it really builds the anticipation of like anyone who knows anything about Moon Knight. It's like we know what's coming, like we know the Marc Spector Moon Knight stuff is coming
Right.
and the Khonshu stuff is coming, but to let us kind of like build our way up to that was really fun. And this was the point in the episode, not to say I was like grumpy or skeptical at the beginning, but like I was like, oh, like where are they going with this? Is it gonna be something cool? And like this is the part of the episode where I'm like, all right, I can really like sink my teeth into this is becoming really fun. So I really love this scene.
Yeah, I thought it was great as well. And when he wakes up in his flat, he notices his goldfish has two fins when
Hmm.
earlier had one. He even makes like a Nemo joke.
Yes.
The references in this were pretty good too. The kind of pop culture references were pretty great. So he freaks out about that, and then I forgot to mention that earlier when he got to his job at the museum, a coworker came up and he's like, "Hey, we're still on for Friday," and he's like, "Are you asking me on a date?" He's so confused of how he has this date with this coworker. He goes to the date because he thinks it's Friday. He's waiting there. No one shows up, so he calls her, and she's like, "It's Sunday, you asshole. That's why I'm not there." And he's like, "What? What do you mean?" And then he asks the waiter, like, "Hey, what day it is?" Like, "It's Sunday." And he's like freaking out. So I love that he mentioned, he's like, "I'm vegan. Why would I go to a steak restaurant?" And then he's like, "I'll just order a steak. I don't care." It's like whatever,
Yeah.
I'm going insane. No, I'll just eat a steak. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
This
yeah,
scene was so heartbreaking, man.
it was sad, dude. It was so sad. I felt so bad for the guy.
Yeah, like realistically, like with all this wacky stuff that's going on in his life, like you knew he was never gonna get this date, but I still wanted to see it happen. Poor Steven, you can't catch a break.
I know, poor Steven. And then he goes back to his flat, and then he notices some things look a little weird. And he ends up finding this kind of compartment up higher up in his flat. He finds this key to a storage unit and a phone. The phone rings. It's from Layla. And she's like, "Oh my God, I thought you were dead. Where are you? What's wrong with you, Marc?" And he's like, "Why'd you call me Marc? Who's Marc?" And he's just so, another thing adding to this confusion, adding to like, what the fuck is going on? His lights start flickering and going crazy. He runs out of his hotel room. We see this other awesome hallway shot of Khonshu kind of chasing him to the elevator. So sick. And then this old lady gets in there and she's like freaked out by him, runs out of the
This is
elevator.
so good.
It's so amazing. He turns
Yeah.
around and sees Khonshu and then just wakes up on the bus in daytime. Like, I love how jarring this episode was. I know some people were
Yeah.
kind of confused or put off by it, but like I thought it was so fucking cool. But like again, I love kind of like things like Fight Club or Mr. Robot that kind of have those sorts of things. And but man, like, and Khonshu looks fucking incredible. Like he looks
Yeah, he's so cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
I know they've announced the normal Moon Knight pop and then the Mr. Knight pop. I need that
Yeah.
Khonshu pop.
Oh my God.
I need
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you put that out there. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, the merch and the action figures for him are gonna be next level.
Yeah, Sam just got in a Moon Knight shirt that has both the main suit and the Mr. Knight suit on it, and she got it for us yesterday at Hot Topic, and I was like, because I was
They have it at
when we
Hot
went,
Topic?
Oh, dude, they have a ton of Marvel shit there.
I checked like
That's
a few weeks ago, and there was nothing there at the local one, so I got to dip
she
back
that's
in.
that's the one she works at. Is would be yours.
Okay, so
I think
yeah,
they
I
just
gotta.
got it because when
Okay,
we went on vacation, I was like, I'm surprised you didn't get any Moon Knight stuff in. She's like, oh, I'm sure it's coming. And then the day she gets back, she sent a picture of it. And I was like, oh, well, there it is. I was like, that
okay.
makes sense.
Well, when I buy this new shirt, I'm definitely blaming you. So yeah, I got to jump on that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
And then as he's on the bus, he's freaking out. He sees Harrow on the bus as he leaves, goes to the museum, and then Harrow's just there in the museum. He reveals that he's an avatar for Amet, which is the Egyptian god that's the devourer of death. Crocodile head. Super fucking crazy. And I do love the Avatar joke they did. It's like, oh, the blue people. Oh, you mean the
yeah,
anime? Like
yeah.
I thought that was like top tier humor for me. That was
Absolutely.
pretty great. He's kind of trapped in the museum because he sees that his cult following is literally everywhere, even in the museum. And he's trapped in the museum, and then a jackal, which Harrow unleashes on him, starts chasing him. He runs and locks himself in the bathroom, and this is when we finally get the reveal. Marc Spector, the man in the mirror, just says, "Hey, man, calm down. Give me control. I'll save us. No big deal." And it was so cool. I actually watched as I was like taking notes. I usually do after I watch the episode. I watch a channel called Real Rejects, and they do reaction videos. So
Yeah,
like it's like a quicker way to like kind of go through the episode and take notes. And because they edit it down, it's not like the full episode. It's just like kind of the main points because they can't do that on YouTube. It'll get flagged for copyright, and so they edit it away so you can see it. And I think they're hilarious, and I like their insights and stuff. So I'll watch that. And
yeah,
um, they were pointing out how it was so like wild to hear Oscar Isaac's like actual voice because they were so sucked in that his accent was so good. It
yeah,
was so good that you're like, oh, because like a lot of people, especially from like different countries like Tom Holland or Christian Bale, they speak English better than most of us. You know, like they sound more American than we do. And I guess it's like
yes,
Tom Holland explained it's like easier to speak in English, like you use less like muscles while you're talking or something like that, something crazy,
yeah.
and that's why it's easier for them to replicate English accents, and it's harder for like Americans to replicate other countries type of accents. And I was
That
like,
makes
wow,
a lot of
that's
sense.
it's super interesting. But yeah, exactly. That's why I thought. I was like, oh, that does make a lot of sense. So it was almost like you could believe that Oscar Isaac was from, you know, Britain, the UK, and that it was just his normal accent, and then he just does a really good American accent. That's how it kind of played. But you're like,
Yeah,
oh shit! And again, the demeanor is so much different, so much confidence. He's like, hey, I got this. We'll take care of it. And he lets him take control. You start seeing the like mummy wraps come around, and then it shoots out to the outside, and you hear like a bunch of shit banging, a fucking sink fly out, and then you go in and you see Moon Knight full in costume beating the shit out of this jackal, and then
hell
he
yeah.
just walks into frame. The scene we've seen from the trailer, but still, I was like, yo, fuck yeah, what a first episode.
It's such a good way to wrap it up too, because like we
Wrap
we
it
just
up.
got like that nice little fix of nice. You get that nice little fix of just like that Moon Knight violence, like that fan
Yes.
service. Selfishly, I was kind of hoping that like all these museum people that he works with, they're all terrible. His boss is terrible. The security guard's like a condescending asshole. The other woman that was there, she's fine. I was kind of hoping like the rest of them would just get like collateral damage by some of these jackals. I'm not gonna lie, but we got a good beatdown in the public bathroom, and that was just wonderful. What a great way to end it.
Yeah, it was perfect. I love this. I mean, I really love this show. Honestly, I know I'm like
Yeah,
a few episodes ahead of most people, and it gets absurdly wilder. Like I can't wait till people
I
get to
love
episode
hearing that.
four. Episode four is like
Yeah,
fucking crazy. Something
yeah,
happens in it where I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. What the fuck? And I
yeah,
can't wait for people to see it because that's one. If you are weary about spoilers, stay the fuck away from the internet that day until you watch that episode because that will be everywhere 1,000%. It's not even
yeah.
a crazy like. There's no crazy cameos or anything like that. Just what happens in it. Like that's going to be everywhere.
On
I
the
guarantee
subject
it.
of spoilers too, and I'll tell you where it is in episode 2 when we get to it, but one of my buddies who's like I'm not gonna expose him, but he's another wrestler, and he spoiled one of the big things in episode 2, like 6 hours after the episode dropped. Like I'm scrolling Twitter, and I'm like, dude, what the
It's not
fuck?
safe. It's not safe. It's never safe.
No, it's not. I need to just stay off it. Like I need to either watch it immediately, like just like hide somewhere at work and just watch it, or I just need to like completely like zero dark 30 all my social medias. Like it's just
That's
I was
that's why I do. Seriously, I
yeah,
stay off the internet until I watch it, which I'm kind of glad. Like I don't have to worry about that for another few weeks. I'm like,
yeah,
whew, I don't even care. Well, the
I
most
was
thing I have
so
to go
bummed.
when I'm talking to people at it, I'm like, did I speak very vaguely?
Yeah.
Because I watched them like all together, so some of the things kind of blend together which episode it happened until like last night when I kind of rewatched episode 1 and 2 to prepare for this. And I
Yes.
was like, did something like this happen? And they're
Yeah.
like, yes. And I'm like, okay, cool. So this is, or like, because
Excellent.
I don't want to like spoil anything for them and
Yeah.
kind of like let on because there are some pretty cool parts,
Yeah.
even just like story dialogue wise that happened in 3 and 4. So like, I don't want to give anything away. So I'm like, did something like this happen? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything else. Don't worry about it. I was like,
I'm
that
just like,
didn't give
bro, why
anything
do you
away.
yeah.
I
Like
think
why do
I
you have
know
to
who it
tweet it?
was. I
You,
just
you
have
probably
I have an
you probably
educated
do.
guess who it is.
Yeah.
Because I
I'm
think
just
I
like, bro,
know
why'd
him
you
and
have to
that
tweet it? Why'd you have to
I
tweet it that
dude,
soon? Give it 48 hours. And like if I didn't watch
dude,
it then that's my fault. But like
and
I'm at
even
work,
like
bro. Like
yeah, even like websites and stuff that cover this shit, they'll post like spoiler articles like right in the morning, and it's like, yo, relax,
yeah. Let me enjoy things, please.
chill. Especially on the East Coast because it doesn't come out. It comes out midnight West Coast time, so it's like
Yeah.
3 in the morning. Like I know some people stay up, but good for you. I can't do that shit. I'm not staying up till
Yeah.
3 in the morning to watch an episode when I'm dead ass tired. It's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. It's not gonna
No.
happen. And I usually have to wait till like the night after because Sam usually works and she commutes an hour, so it's like I'm off the internet all fucking day. I don't even touch it. I go on
Yeah.
my messages and that's it. That's all I do. I go on the messages and then I don't go on Facebook, don't go on Twitter, don't go on Instagram because I know if I do, spoilers will be abound because people
Yeah,
have no chill about that shit anymore.
you're absolutely right.
I mean, it's even starting to happen with movies. When Spider-Man came out, I was off the internet for like 3 days, just in case. I was like, I don't want to be spoiled, so I'm staying off the internet. I'll probably do the same for
Smart.
Doctor Strange too. Honestly, I'll probably
That's
stay off the
that's the way
internet
to do it.
for like days because I'm like, I do not want to be spoiled in this shit. And even with Spider-Man, we kind of knew what was coming, but still, there was a ton of surprises still in
Yeah.
the movie, and it still takes away from the like allure of seeing it for the first time in a theater and shit like that. But it's crazy how people are now. They're just like, whatever, I don't care. I remember back in the Endgame days, people had some fucking class. They didn't spoil shit for weeks.
Yeah. I'm definitely salty about it, but yeah, I just
Even
gotta
TV shows, I wait until like the weekend to say anything spoiler on the internet.
yeah, like I remember when like Game of Thrones was like the show.
Yeah,
I literally unfriended this dude that I knew on Facebook because like as the episode was happening, I was in college, so it's like I was on my way back to like watch my friends. Like as the episode was happening, like he's like live tweeting all the spoilers. I'm like, bro, what the fuck? Where like read the room. Like
yeah, dude. People
you
do
can
that
be
all the time
excited.
for Game of Thrones. Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to post about it. It's
no,
not necessary. Your
you.
one Twitter like, your fucking 12 Facebook likes are not it's hurting me more than it's helping you, I promise.
Yeah, it's like when critics have reactions they can post. They just post their general thoughts of the movie. They can't even give away anything, even plot based that they liked or anything like that. It's not even a
Yeah.
non-spoiler review. It's just a reaction. People should just do that.
Yeah,
Just
that's fine.
post your reaction to the episode. Holy fuck, the latest Game of Thrones episode was crazy. That's all you gotta say.
Yes,
you know,
please.
or holy shit, Game of Thrones. Like a lot of people with wrestling, which I mean, wrestling is fine. It's like a live sports thing. I can understand why people
Yeah.
spoil stuff with that. It's kind of hard to get away from that. That's a little different. But even that, they're like, wow, that match was great, or something, or something like that. Like you don't have to like give away every fucking detail of everything.
Right.
Give
I
them
agree.
something excited to like, oh, I'll go watch that now. These people seem pretty excited about it. I'm gonna go check that out. Same with shows, like, wow, last Game of Thrones was really good, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
but people got it. Like you said, they got to get their one like on Twitter.
Just it's so much easier to be cool. It really is.
It is. You're not wrong. You're not
Yeah.
wrong. So episode 2, Steven wakes up again. It's another jarring thing. He even runs out of his bed this time, and the ankle thing catches him, and he falls on his face. Poor guy. poor guy. He goes into work, sees the museum is all blocked off. He asks what's happening. Oh, some renovations in the bathroom, and he's like, "Oh fuck, that was real. That really happened." Because it's kind of been this whole thing the whole time. Like, did that really happen, or did it not really happen? They're even kind of playing with us as the viewer. Is like, did that really happen? Did it not? You know, and I which I like. I like that kind of stuff anyway. And he goes to the security guard. The security guard calls him Stu, right? Not Steven or something like that.
Yeah, he always it's like a different name that he's calling him that's never correct because he's a condescending asshole.
The facts. He is. And he's like, hey, can you run the security footage from last night? And he's like, you're not going to believe it. This is fucking bonkers. You're never going to believe it. And he sees that happening. But then when he sees the events of what he remembers, there's no Jackal. It's just him running around like a fucking crazy person. And he's like, man, you fucked up the bathroom. What's wrong with you, man? What are you doing? And I loved him seeing that. But then we do get the classic MCU security footage stare from Marc Spector.
Yes.
Which I loved. We got it from Wanda, from Bucky, kind of from Paul Rudd's Ant-Man, but it wasn't really a stare. It was like, please help me. But, you know, and Steven's kind of questioning, like, what the fuck happened? Did that really happen? I don't even fucking know. And then he ends up getting fired, of course, because it looks like he trashed his bathroom somehow. This weird, lonely, random dude just trashed his bathroom somehow, you know. I don't fucking know. But yeah, he gets fired, and they're even like, he's like, yeah, I think I need to get some help, you know, playing into the mental health aspect of it all, because you know, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on, which I like. And Phase 4 has been very good about that, playing into like these very big topics that people deal with and making it very relatable. Not that I have DID or anything, but like people do, and it's cool that they're bringing something like this in the forefront of such a mainstream property. You know what I mean? To be like, hey, you can have this disorder and still be a fucking hero, or you know, or something like that. You know, it's good that they're doing these kind of things. I like it a lot. And then he ends up going to the storage unit with the key he found in the last episode. He ends up finding a bunch of money, some guns, a passport that says Marc Spector. And then he ends up talking to his reflection, who ends up being Marc Spector. And he's kind of like, am I some secret agent? And he's like, it's a little more complicated than that. And he's like, hey, he's like, dude, just go take a nap over there. I'll take care of this. Don't worry about it. And he also finds the scarab. So he's like, oh, all of that was fucking real. Like, it confirms it for him. It happened. There's no doubt about it. It happened. And he's like, I am never letting you take over again. Like, I don't want people getting hurt. I don't want people getting killed, which creates this really cool duality to the character of the two personalities in himself, where he's like, I don't want anyone to get killed. And this is me, even though it's not like me exactly. I don't want anyone else getting killed because of me. So he's basically like, I'm going to go to the police and have them fucking lock me up. Whatever. No one will get hurt. That's all I care about. Steven's such a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a sweet boy.
Yeah, before we get to the next part, do you have any thoughts on the kind of the opening of this episode?
I was surprised at how trusting the security guard was, because he's like, yeah, like I never forget a face, and like he's clearly dealt with this guy before. But this person he's dealt with before comes in with like a completely different personality and like a weird accent, and he just doesn't question it. Oh, he's like, yeah, bring it to your locker, fine. I thought that was really funny, and then like it is good to show the duality between Steven and Marc, just because like it is interesting though, because like yeah, he finds out Marc kills people, but like I feel like he should have known that based on the pile of dead bodies around him when he woke up in the middle of this town they'd never been to before. And I'm like, I understand Steven being like a sweet boy and caring, but also he I mean, again, we wouldn't have a plot if you were just like, yeah, oh, sure, Marc, like whatever you say. But I'm just like, this guy. I feel like this guy knows what he's doing. Like Steven, like, come on, bro, let Marc do his thing. Yeah,
he's a smart guy. He just has these like this moral compass that he's trying to like abide by. You know what I mean? He's trying to be like, I get Aristotle situation to be. I didn't get us into the situation. He's like, I'm just here because I have to be.
Yeah,
You know, it's a tough thing, and I love the scene. We see Khonshu again, another like little horror s scene where he's chasing him down this like storage unit,
yeah,
poorly lit hallway. And I love the freeze frame. Some people were making, like, again, it's me pointing out some of the people are making fun of. People made fun of like the freeze frame into the next scene, but I thought it played into the scene perfectly. Like
yeah,
it freeze framed on him like freaking out. And then he kind of falls out of the building, and then he meets Layla, which is revealed to be his wife that he had no idea about. Well, Mark's
yeah.
wife, but
That was great.
still. And he sees like kind of stoked about it. He's like, "Oh, you're my wife? Damn. Okay."
Yeah.
And she's kind of confused by this whole thing too. She's
Yeah,
like, "What's up with the accent? Is Stephen Grant just another alias you're using? Like, what are you doing?" And he kind of lays out to her. He's like, "I have no idea what's going on. I think there's something wrong with me. I'm in danger. You're probably in danger too. We should try to help each other. Maybe, it's kind of it's a really kind of tough scene for him, and again, it kind of like leads into this like whole emotional thing. And he's like, I don't know what I'm involved in, but I have to figure some way out to make it happen. And she's kind of like, I married to this man, but it's not this man. It's like such a complex kind of scene and interaction with each other. And it's so cool that we're getting something like this because it's you don't see a lot of things like this. You know what I mean? In kind of like media and pop culture, where
no,
it's she's married to a man who has fucking multiple personalities and she didn't know it. It's crazy. And he's just been gone for months. And there is a thing that brings up where he calls his mom multiple times but leaves messages, and she even brings up like, oh, you're talking to her again, but we've never heard him talk to her. So that's like a
yeah,
nice question in the background of like, I'm sure that'll get revealed later, I would imagine.
yeah,
But what did you think of this conversation between Layla and Steven?
yeah. What the main thing that made me think about, like when she says, like, is this another alias? Like, are we gonna get the dodgy like cab driver persona making an appearance? Like, that's what kind of clued me onto, or at least I hope, if it's just an Easter egg or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
the thing with his mother was very interesting. I would definitely like to see how that plays out. But I just thought like Stephen Grant's just reaction to the scene and like the acting in the scene was so perfect because he's like you said, he's like, oh, you're my wife, like that's cool. Like he's like impressed with himself, like this dude that's
Yeah.
he's clearly had his struggles with women. He just
Right.
got like this stood up on this date and he had like Layla kind of dropped into his life. So I think he was definitely like feeling himself on that. And then like her whole confusion with him having like this weirdo accent and like being a completely different person
Right.
is good. It was good to see that unravel throughout the rest of the episode. So I thought this was great.
Yeah, and they do kind of go back and forth. Like she sees that it has in common that like he loves and speaks French, and like they have like all these like and like poetry and stuff like that, like all these weird common interests that obviously her and Mark don't have, which
Yes.
that kind of dynamic plays more into as we go along too, which is very, very cool. And there has been some allusions to excuse me, to Jake Lockley, which is the cab driver persona you were talking
Yes.
about. And I think more of that kind of unravels. So I'm curious to see if we do end up seeing that by the end.
Yeah.
Because that would be very, very cool to see another personality kind of thrown into this. And there could
Plus,
be more. There could be more. Maybe
yeah.
we'll see.
Plus, I love a good fake mustache, and that's really like a backbone of that character. Like
Yeah.
if they're gonna do that character, but he doesn't have a fake mustache, I don't even want it. Throw the whole character away.
I
We
don't
need
even.
the fake mustache.
I don't even want it.
No.
So the cops show up to his flat, and they're like, "Hey, you have something stolen." Steven's kind of confused by this, but then he probably thinks, oh, the scarab, Layla's hiding out, and they end up taking him away. And they're like, hey, you need to come with us. And Steven, being Steven's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to. And they take him to this like abandoned warehouse, and he's like, aren't you going to take me to the police station? And he's like, we never said that. And then he noticed they have the tattoos that are related to Arthur Harrow. He comes out and he's basically like, I'm going to kill you. Basically, he's like, give me the scarab. and he kind of walks him around his whole compound, but he does
Yeah.
reveal that he was the previous avatar of Khonshu, which is, I think, adds so much to the character, makes it so much cooler of like,
Yeah.
how did he get out of it, and how is he now an avatar for this for Ahmet? Like, how did that happen? I have no idea, but maybe we'll find out later. But even if we don't, that's fine. It's just kind of cool that he's like, oh, I was once
Yeah.
Moon Knight as well. So like, I get I get everything that everything stuff like that. Like, I've been there. He calls himself the Fist of Vengeance, which is cool because obviously Moon Knight is called the Fist of Khonshu in the comics, which was a
Yes.
cool little reference there. And he kind of just shows him around, and he's just like, all right, give me the scarab. And he's like, I don't know where it is. And Layla shows up and she was like, I have it. Kind of comes to save the day. Was like, hey, summon the suit. And he's like, I don't even know how to do that. And
Yeah.
Harrow unleashes another jackal. The jackal ends up breaking through this door, and I do love. He says, "I'm gonna die in some weird magician's man cave or something like
Yeah.
that." It was a great line. And the jackal tackles him out of the window, and then as he's frantically falling to probably his death, he summons the Mr. Knight suit in
Yes.
an awesome superhero landing that he ends up falling over in. Because again, it's still Stephen Grant in there. Of course, his representation of being the avatar of Khonshu is going to be a goofy fucking dude. And
Yeah.
this is a cool change to me than the comics, because Mr. Knight is a different, a whole completely different persona
Yeah.
in the comics. It's like almost like another personality in itself. But it's cool that like Marc has the normal Moon Knight as his summoning the suit, and then Steven has Mr. Knight as summoning the suit. I thought that was like a
Yes.
really cool, interesting twist on the character. I was like, oh wow, because like a lot of people were like, how are we going to get Mr. Knight in the show? That's kind of weird. And boom, that explains it. That's how. It's
Yeah.
his. It's how he summons the suit, which I thought
So
was really cool.
to circle back to what I said earlier, so this was the part my friend spoiled on with his tweet. He's
I
like, "Oh
figured.
man, it was really cool how they made Mr. Knight Steven's suit like representing his I'm like, what the fuck? Because like it was still really cool, but it would have been
Yeah.
so much cooler if I didn't read that first. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, it was interesting because it is like a complete different take on Mr. Knight, because like Mr. Knight is almost like he's like Leon the Professional. He's like Hitman, where he's like very cool, very collected, very much like there to just like handle his business. Nothing shakes him. And it's weird that it still makes sense that it's Steven. Like
Right.
because Steven would be in the fancy suit, like
Right.
kind of dressed up to the nines. But it's also like a complete like 180 personality shift to where like, Steven's this like nervous, anxious, like goofy type of dude still under it.
Right.
And I lost when he pulled out the nunchucks. I lost my mind as well. That was really funny to me. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool! Look at these!" Like
Like, what are
he's
these?
just like he was so like impressed with himself. It was very endearing.
Yeah, it was good. And again, not to give too much away, but in the next episode we do see more of kind of like Mr. Knight's also kind of known as like the detective kind
Yes.
of the personalities. And we kind of see a little bit of that. Again, it's like a strength to Stephen Grant's intelligence and him kind of being more adapting more to the situation at hand rather than being thrust into it and being like, what the fuck's going on? In episode 3, he's more of like, okay, I know what's going on. I'm I'm in this because I have to be. Let's make the best of it, kind of thing. And like episode 3 is like a really good turning point in character development, I think. So I'm stoked to talk about that next week. It's
Yeah, man.
really, I think it's like so cool how they do it. Personally, I know other people probably won't be into it or whatever, but it is what it is. I like everything, so it's whatever. And then we see kind of Mr. Knight fight with this jackal, and they show it from Layla's perspective. And again, she cannot see the jackal, which we kind of talked about earlier about how for some reason people who aren't avatars, I don't know if it's specifically avatars or if they have to kind of like believe, because in some kind of other pop culture things there was, you can't see things unless you believe in them and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or even like the anime Death Note, you have to like touch a Death Note to be able to see a Shinigami or something like that. I'm sure there's some
Yeah.
sort of rule that will probably be revealed of why only they can see them. but it's obvious he's fighting something because like shit's getting fucked up, like he's getting thrown around, like he's definitely fighting something. That's the
Yeah.
part I liked. I liked how they showed her he's just getting fucking thrown around and she can't see anything other than him flailing around. He does land a nice punch on him, which was cool. Good for
Yeah.
Steven. But then he
Good for him,
realizes
man.
he's way out of his depth in this. He's totally out of his depth, and he sees Marc's reflection in the bus, and he's like, "Give me control. Let me take care of this." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, all right." Like, I'll let you take control. And an awesome fucking transformation into the main Moon Knight suit, and we see this awesome chase on rooftops, and he ends up impaling the fucking jackal on the top of this like statue thing. It was so dope. He's
metal.
using, yeah, super metal, and he's using the moon fucking batarangs out of his chest,
Yep.
which is so sick that he takes it and it just stays there, and he can put him
Yes.
back. It shows that awesome scene with him catching it and putting it back. So fucking dope. I love how just
Yeah.
like supernatural it is. I actually did see this really cool thread of it was part of like the creative team behind it, and they talked about the conception of the suit and how it would like form around him and how they want it to be supernatural and stuff like that, of like how it can't just be like a suit they could like hide in a backpack like Batman or something, or they'd have to find it. It would kind of make the show insanely complicated, so they wanted to add that supernatural kind of magic element to where it summons around him and stuff like that, which I think is fucking incredible. I think it's so
Yeah.
cool. But
I don't know if you remember, but like when the trailer first leaked and like screenshots were first coming out and they showed the suit forming around him, a lot of
yep,
people were shitting on it, like, oh,
yeah,
what the fuck is this? Like, what is this weird like suit? And like people just kind of took a shit on it. It was just like, and now that it came out, like everyone is like, oh, this is so cool because it is. It's awesome. I
it's
agree. I think it's
awesome.
great. And hearing that perspective too of like how it helps them like plot the show out differently, that makes a ton of sense. But like, yeah, the suit's so cool, and it makes sense like with the whole like Egypt tie-in. So awesome.
Yeah, and this whole Avatar thing, I've been reading a lot of theories online, is because in Black Panther, Killmonger destroys all the heart-shaped herb, which is kind of like the whole crux to getting the Black Panther's powers. But
Yes.
Boss is actually like the cousin of Khonshu. I think it's the cousin.
Yeah.
But so being the Black Panther, they can just be the avatar of Boss now. They can kind of like this whole avatar concept in the MCU can kind of explain away the
Yeah.
heart-shaped herb, and the new Black Panther can just be the avatar of Boss, which I think it'd be really fucking cool.
That makes a
Add
ton of
like
sense. Yeah.
this kind of like more mystical element to that. And like that you have like the God thing with the technology elements that they already have would be a really cool combination, I think. So I saw that and I was like, whoa, I was like, that's a really good idea. I don't know if they'll do that, but they definitely could, and it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
that's a great take. I think that makes a ton of sense.
And basically we end up seeing we see that Layla sees that Arthur got the scarab. He somehow lost it in the whole fight sequence, which kind of makes sense. There was a lot fucking going on.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention that the scarab is a compass to Amet's temple, which was mentioned when they were in the compound. So that's why Arthur Harrow is so crazy about finding it, because he wants to get to the temple and unleash Amet back into the world, which I would assume would be very bad for all of us.
Yeah.
But again, it's the MCU. It's like the Facebook group, which again, if you want to join the Facebook group, there's a link in the description to join. Awesome conversations, awesome memes, news, all that stuff. But someone brought up, they're like, I can't believe no one's brought up that there's just like a stone eternal hanging out of the ocean somewhere in the earth. And I was like, that's just another Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, think of all the crazy shit
Yeah.
that's happened in the MCU, like alien invasions, half of the world disappeared, another alien invasion, like gods coming to Earth, a whole town being taken over by a witch. Like, weird shit happens all the time. So just having a
Yeah.
stone fucking thing come out, it's like that's a Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's
they
just
gotta have
normal.
their they gotta prioritize.
That's just they're like, whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
That's fine. So Harrow has the scarab, and now Khonshu is talking with Marc, because Marc is fully in control now, and he does reveal that he did save him, just like the comic origin. That's how the whole thing, he becomes his avatar because he saves his life. I do wonder if we'll get a flashback scene or not. I don't know if we
Yeah.
really need it. If we really need it, they kind of just laid it out there, but it would be cool to see. If they do show it, I wouldn't be mad at it. but they did kind of give us that background of it's at least similar to what happens in the comics, which I think is really cool. And they're basically like, he's like, what do we got to do? What do we got to go? And they end up in Egypt. But before that, he has this like very visceral conversation with Steven where he's like, oh, this is what it feels like being on the outside looking in. And he's talking to him in the mirror. And he's like, I'm not going to give you control. I need to take care of this, because that's kind of what Marc's want this whole time. And it's the first time we've really seen Marc fully in control and not just switch back. Like we did in the beginning episode 2. It was like right after we see Moon Knight for the first time, it goes right back to Steven. And he ends up angrily smashing out the mirror, and it's like you can tell this dude is like fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, another big thing, Khonshu does reveal that his next prospect to be the avatar of him is Layla.
That dirty Khonshu.
He's a tricky bastard. But again, another cool layer to add to the show. It's like that's why Marc is pushing her away. He doesn't want Khonshu to get a hold of her. And you know, they have this some sort of deal where it's like if he kind of does this one thing, then it'll be over. And Arthur even kind of warns Steven where he's like, it's never going to end. There's always going to be something else, something next. Like you're never going to get out of this, basically. And I'm excited to see that to kind of come to a head eventually as well, probably by the conclusion, I would imagine, of the show.
Yeah.
And Marc wakes up in Egypt, and I know people are freaking out about Daddy Oscar Isaac shirtless at the end.
I mean, whatever the Airbnb is, like, it's nice. He's got a nice spot.
You know, those Egyptian Airbnbs, top notch.
Yeah.
So what'd you think of the end of this episode? End of episode 2?
Oh man, it was cool. Again, like I think the like revelation that Layla's the next candidate, like that dirty Khonshu. He's such a selfish, tricky boy, messing with Marc, can't let Marc live his life. And I'm interested to see how that relationship develops, and then I'm glad we are starting to get into some like more Egypt stuff, like the reveal, like as he was waking up in his Airbnb, looking out on the scenery, like, oh, that was so cool. It just made me so hyped for the next episode. So
and the music like building, the music in this show is fucking
it's hype. Yeah,
it's so tight.
Yeah,
and I didn't even get a good chance of watching it the first time because like the first 3 episodes I watched in an airport and on an airplane I had an AirPod in and Sam had an AirPod in, so it's like the sound was not the best, obviously.
Sure.
So it's cool to like kind of go back and get the full experience a little bit, but yeah, man, this show is fucking dope. I love it. I love this. I think I said this in my non-spoiler review, but if the last 2 episodes are as good as the rest of it'll be my favorite MCU series so far, which is a pretty high bar because I think they've all been good to like amazing. Like I thought Loki and WandaVision were like top tier MCU stuff, and this is like right up there with both of them, honestly.
Oh, they're killing it. Like I know I remember telling you specifically, and then like all my other friends that are Moon Knight fans that would ask me about it, like, oh, what do you think of the show? Like, what do you want out of it? I'm like, honestly, my bar is so low. The show would have to be so bad for me to dislike it. And the fact that like they're going out there and they're hitting a home run, that's just the cherry on top, man. That's icing on the cake. It's beautiful. I love to see it.
Yeah, I've seen the duality between Moon Knight fans. Like, it seems like some of the older Moon Knight fans are still kind of whatever about it, which I don't really understand, but I guess it is what it is. But people kind of, not even like newer, but are into the more like kind of current iterations of Moon Knight, like the Lemire run and stuff like that. They're like, oh, this is awesome. Because it's like obvious they're pulling very hard from the Lemire run in this series, which is really, really cool. It's just like I've seen kind of both. Like I've been talking to this one guy, and he's like, it's like, okay. He's like, I'm kind of waiting to see how it fleshes out. He's like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. Good for you, I guess. I don't know. I'm like, it takes a lot for me to like not enjoy something. And it takes me even more for me to dislike something, like really be like, man, I don't like this movie. And I've been very vocal about the things I don't like. So, or it's like more of like, yeah, I really didn't like that. But and I have the reasons for that. It's just I don't know. Like I watch TV and movies to enjoy them. So it takes a lot. It's like people are like, even like we were talking a little before we recorded. It's like, oh, what'd you think of Morbius? I'm like, it was fine. it's like a good comparison. I watched half of that Vin Diesel movie Bloodshot that's based on a comic, and I had to turn it off halfway through because it was laughably bad.
Oh, that's a bummer.
It was like
That's a
not
bummer.
good. He was pretty much Dominic Toretto from the Fast and Furious movies, but with
That doesn't shock
superpowers.
me.
But he seemed kind of underpowered compared to Dominic Toretto, other than he had this crazy like nanotechnology in him. Like he was doing the same shit he does in Fast and Furious movies. So I was like, it was just like, I don't know. I feel like he acts way too serious in things that like aren't that serious. And
Yes.
it kind of, you're like, what are you doing? I don't know, but that's enough about that. It's just, I was like, I can't even finish this. I was like, I had like an hour left on the plane, and Sam like passed out, so I was like, this is on Hulu, I'll watch it. And then
Yeah.
when we got home, we were just kind of chilling, and I put it back on, and I watched like 5 minutes more of it, and I was like, I don't even want to watch this. I'm done.
Well, like you can never underestimate a comic book fan's ability to just be like to pick things apart or be displeased with
Yes,
something. It's just
very,
like, I mean,
very true.
it's very well known you're a Star Wars fan, and they're like one of the king fandoms of like just hating everything.
It's like Star
So
Wars, Spider-Man comic fans, and I think now old school Moon Knight fans. They're kind of like, they're all kind
yeah,
of getting there where you're like, can you just like something?
yeah. It's like, what do you expect? Like, if you had told us like 10 years ago, yeah, there's gonna be like a Moon Knight show on, uh, like why readily available for everybody to watch, like
Yeah.
I would have lost my mind. Like people, it's not again, not everything's gonna be like completely accurate to the comic book. Like who cares? As long as
What's
they don't like completely turn him into something else, like that isn't even the character. Like
yeah,
like if they don't X-Men Origins Wolverine it, like it's gonna be fine.
that's the thing about the MCU. They're adaptations. They're not one to one to the comic, but they
Yeah,
show that they love the comics and they love the characters. They usually get the characters dead on, or they make the characters far more interesting, and they add this new
right.
depth and like wealth to the characters. But they get the character, they just do the story different. Because I know some people are like, "Oh, I would love to see Planet Hulk just redone in live action," but it's like, why would you want to see the same exact thing?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great point.
they're going to tell a different story. That's why I don't read manga. I love anime, but it's like, why would I read the thing I already watched?
Yeah,
I saw it. It's not even like, it's like they're not lucid adaptations. They're almost the same exact thing. I was like, that's why I can't get into reading it, because it's like, I've already watched it. Why? It's not like reading a book and then watching the movie, because there's usually differences. You know what I mean? Even
yes,
if it's very close to the book, there's always going to be differences, because they're not going to adapt it one to one. But with manga, it is literally one to one. Like they'll add some different stuff, but for the most part, it's like one to one. And that's like,
I absolutely agree.
I was like, no knocking. And it's mostly like, I don't want to read ahead in them, because I was like, I don't want to get spoiled. I want to watch it happen. I was like,
Yeah,
I'd rather just watch it happen. And it's like, no knock to manga. It's just like, I can't do that stuff where it's like the same thing. And I get why people do. It's just, for me, I'm like, I don't like that. That's why I like reading comics. So I'll read the comics and then I'll watch it happen. I was like, oh, that was a cool little nod to that part in the comic, or something like that. Like that's what I like. And I'm like, oh, that's super cool. And it's like, even like just like little things like in Infinity War, I read the Infinity Gauntlet thing, and there's like a thing where Spider-Man webs Thanos in the face, and they did that in the movie, and I was like, oh my god, that's from the comic and stuff like that. And it's like when he turns people into ribbons, and like, oh my god, that's from that, and just stuff like that. It's like cool little things that like you'd only get if you read the comic, and it's like things like that are proof to that they care about this stuff. Like they obviously like that's like another thing. And I was like, if you think you're such an expert in this shit, I was like, I bet you $1,000,000 Kevin Feige knows more about that character than you do.
yes,
Just gonna be honest.
100%.
Like
Yeah,
that dude's probably the biggest nerd on earth. Like
yes,
for real. So it's, but yeah, man, awesome. Thank you so much for doing this after show with me. And I know scheduling is kind of weird, but we'll make it work for the
yeah.
next few weeks.
Yeah, no, thank
Make
you.
it
I was
work.
really glad we could sit down and talk. And yeah, like we are two extremely busy people with like schedules that don't sync up at all. So I'm glad we could get this on screen, and I'm looking forward to talking more.
Hell yeah. So let people know where they can find you and what you have going on, and then we'll get out of here.
Yes, so I appreciate being really cool and throwing my at right there. I am everywhere at Mike Skyros. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm still learning TikTok. It's a different beast, but you can find me on all those. And I have links to, if you're interested in wrestling merchandise, I have links to that on all those profiles. And yeah, check me out, see if there's anything you like.
Hell yeah. I gotta get to a show and watch this guy wrestle. It seems like every time he wrestles near me, I'm somewhere else, which is a
Yes,
bummer. Like you're
we'll
like,
make it
oh dude,
happen.
I'm in like Utica or something. I'm like, I'm doing this other thing. I'm like, fuck. But
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. But again, I'm very stoked to have you on the show, and we'll see what happens the rest of the show. I'm excited to see episodes 3 and 4 because
I
they're
can't
very
wait.
good. They're
Yeah,
very good. All right, guys. You know where you can find the podcast. Go to metalcorenerds.com, at Metalcore Nerds on all social media. And if you're new to this, make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Helps the podcast out very, very much. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking of Moon Knight. But if you're listening to this, hit us up on Twitter at Metalcore Nerds again, and let us know what you think of the show. Again, we're really digging it, so I hope you guys are too. But until next time, see you later, nerds.